Learning technique. Intro. In the last two videos, we talked about learning and motivation. I recently revisited my scripts of those and was unhappy about the way I addressed learning techniques. Sure, there were some examples here and there, but I think this topic deserves a little more attention. I tried to remember moments in my life when someone was teaching me about how to learn something. After a while, I couldn't really come up with something, and I was shocked how little teachers actually told me about the process of learning itself. In school, I was just given material and ordered, "Here's a book, read it, recite this poem by heart, know these 100 vocabulary," etc. Did anyone tell me how to accomplish those tasks? No. Intro. As I started out writing the script for this video, I had two directions in mind. I could go for a comprehensive guide explaining popular techniques, or a guided tour through my way of acquiring and developing the techniques I use. After some time spent thinking, I chose a third direction. What I use right now and why. Some of the techniques are popular and might be known, others are tailored to my own twisted mind. The goal is to introduce some maybe new ideas and ways to help to improve one's learning process. Structure information. This chapter is all about tackling large amounts of new information. How to approach papers or books, how to structure all the new information we learn and how to access them when we need to. How to use color. Back in high school, when we dealt with textbooks, almost everybody used the marker to highlight important information. Like it was an instinct, everybody drew a highlighter the second they saw a book. I had one major problem though. No one told me what could be considered important information. How was I supposed to know? I was afraid everything was important, so I just blindly painted away. Most of the time I ended up with a yellow page and some white spots here and there. I thought this whole highlighting was utterly stupid and pretty much dropped it. In university I gave it another try, but I came up with my own coloring system. Instead of just using one color to highlight everything important, I assigned every color its own purpose. Yellow is used to mark a section, a closed block of information. Within a section, I use blue and green to highlight facts. The colors alternate to indicate where a particular piece of information ends and another one starts. To mark subsections within a specific fact, for instance bullet points or multiple examples, I simply underline the text. And the last one is red, which I only use for special information. That could be definitions, something that just seems strange to me or deviates from my own expectations. This system supports the learning process by adding information about the purpose of the marked text. Moreover, it helps to divide the text into its core elements and reveal the structure. This is the main topic. It is made out of X facts. There are a couple of examples and there is one definition. It may seem obvious when we think about it, but pointing it out and drawing a mental image helps to recall and locate the information. Where did I read it? What did the page look like? What color did I highlight it with? Like adding color to a monochrome puzzle. And I am sorry, I cannot give a clear definition of what could be considered an important fact. In my case, I learned what's important by not being able to answer a lot of questions in my life. But jokes aside, thinking about the meaning of a fact and how it is connected to the overall structure of the topic is the first step in understanding if and why something might be important. Folders and numbers. I usually use this method to set up file servers or email accounts. It is fit to organize large quantities of little pieces of information, but we can also apply to our learning experience. In my day job, I work in process management, juggling vast amounts of projects for a lot of different clients. I have to be careful not to lose track of all the little bits and pieces of information, so I use a fixed filing system. Here's an example. First come the different projects, each with its own number. In each folder there's the same setup. There's 1 ideas, 2 development, 3 testing, 4 documents and 99 archive. Documents could be divided into 1 manual, 2 work instruction, 3 release notes, and so forth. It is all about organizing information, bring it into a fixed structure we can orient ourselves by. Now we use this approach to our color code. The colors we use are their own folders. So every chapter has the same folder. 1. Summary. 2. Main topic. 3. Definitions. 4. Diagrams, etc. In university, I usually wrote a little side script according to such a structure, kind of like flashcards. What are the different passages? What is passage X about? What definitions were used? Were there any diagrams? Add information. What we did in the previous chapter was the start of what I call the added information approach. Practically, we try to add and link more information to an existing one, so we have more routes to choose from to reach the desired information. The first view was, how does it look in the book? We think of a specific fact and try to find it by going through the book in our mind. In which chapter was it? In what context? What did we color it with? The second view is the database view. Here we have to try to identify it by figuring out what it was, a definition, a list, etc. Or what summary mentioned it. And we then navigate our way through the file structure. You might be thinking, great, I do remember a gray blur where it was, but not what it said. That is what this chapter is about. How to remember specific information. There are things we just know, we don't have to think about, because we repeated them countless times and imprinted them into our brain. What street do we live in? When is our birthday? What phone do we own? Etc. But when we learn for an exam, speaking dates, numbers, charts, definitions, we usually don't have the time to repeat everything 1,000 times. So we need ways to recall information that is not imprinted in our brains. Pronunciation and association. With this method, I learned most of my vocabulary. It is helpful for me to see a list with words and their translation. I need a picture, a sound, a performance, just more information to add, more information to remember. This is when I like to practice with learning apps. Each word is spoken and accompanied by a visual aid. So here we have 3 information which can lead us to the word. Listen to the pronunciation and say the word. Look at the picture and say the word. Look at the character and say the word. And additionally, I usually add a version myself, in which I kind of act out the word or come up with a scene where I would use it. Like drinking a cup of hot tea, burning my tongue, and I curse "Atsi," that means hot. This also works the other way around. I learned quite some words watching Japanese shows. For example, this method can be used to all kinds of information. In what year was Napoleon Bonaparte born? Ah oui, 1769. My tip, use every impression to remember a word. No matter if good or bad. If a picture doesn't make sense, if a pronunciation is so over the top, use that information to remember the word. Mnemonics. I am not really good with mnemonics. I tried to come up with some while learning Japanese characters, but either I cannot come up with decent ones or I remember them in some twisted ways. I watched some videos about good mnemonics, but only a couple stuck. Like an apple for a or shi looks like a fishing hook. Nu looks like a noodle. Mine are a little bit weirder. Nu without a swirl at the end is a meh, because meh, not a noodle. And there's he, what looks like an arrow to heaven. This is a he, because it is not a he. Ni looks like the symbol for forward call on my phone. And fu, because I cannot remember this one. I think this is enough to let you decide whether or not to adopt my way of thinking or proceeding like this section never existed. Rhythm and notes. This is a neat method to remember large sequences of numbers, like historical dates or phone numbers. I am not very good with long chains of numbers, but I make use of some of the skills I have as a musician. Simply said, remembering a number by singing it, like this. Let's use this technique on example to see how it is executed. This is a made-up German cell number. 016234272773. Sorry if this exists and you get a call. First, we separate the prefix 0162. Then make cuts at prominent patterns. Possible would be 342-72773 or 34272773. Either two blocks start with a 7 or two blocks start with 27. I would go with the first example, because it makes a better melody. First, we find the rhythm. 0162-342-72773. And then it turns to the numbers. A low note for 0 up to 9 with the highest note. And it doesn't have to be perfect, just enough to remember the difference between the numbers. Here's what it could sound like. 0162-342-72773. It might feel awkward at the beginning to sing a phone number, but for me it really does work. I even caught myself humming this melody days after I wrote the example. The main information is the number itself. One clue is the pattern we cut it into. Maybe we can remember the prominent numbers, the reason why we made a cut. Another clue is the melody we can sing or visualize. It's like a riddle movement. This is something I started doing after watching a game show. There was the question, which of the following words can be written on one line on a keyboard? The candidate was baffled and tried to recite the layout of a keyboard. I could answer the question within seconds. I closed my eyes and typed the words on an imaginary keyboard, paying attention when my fingers moved up or down. I cannot recite the characters in orders, for the love of God, but I am a proficient writer. So now when learning a number, like a pin or a date, etc., I imagine typing it on a keypad, like this. The moon landing was on 07201969. It is like learning a song on an instrument. We not only study what, but also how. We have two completely different kind of information that lead to the same result. Either immediately knowing the exact date or repeating a pattern with our fingers, which can translate into the date. Putting it all together, I still have trouble with some hiragana characters and a lot more with katakana characters. And for the sake of the video, I just came up with an overloaded learning chart, trying to add as much information as possible. The simplest way to learn the characters would be to write a flashcard for each one, with the character written in the middle. My flashcard would look something like this. Let's take a hiragana chart. What information do we have? We have an x-axis and we have a y-axis. So we can use the positioning of a character according to this chart. N would be in the top left corner, N would be in the middle, O on the bottom right. Every vowel has its own line of consonants. So why not use 5 different colors to write the vowels? This chart also provides the way a character is written. Let's keep the information too and write it with our fingers when we flip a card. Here's what learning with those characters would be like. It is written green, almost at the top and centered. Green or second row means I, centered means M or H, so me? Yes! After I'd learned with this advanced card for a while, I would remove the additional information bit by bit, up until a point I knew them all by heart. Conclusion. Learning is quite a difficult topic. There are so many techniques out there. I looked into a lot of them for my research, but sadly seldom are any of those taught when we were in the most need of them. Therefore I taught you the techniques I use, and I'm sure some of you miss popular ones like the storytelling memory experts use. But that is a method I tried to acquire a couple of times and always failed at it. I think my brain just doesn't really work that way. That is an advice I want to give everybody. If something doesn't work out for you after a couple of tries, drop it. The whole world seems to learn with flashcards, so what? I don't like them. You think my way of coming up with mnemonics is weird? Fair enough, cross it out. It doesn't matter if it is learning vocabulary or how to play an instrument. Just because something is labeled a best practice doesn't mean it has to work for everybody. Listen to your brain and try to understand how it functions. Sometimes it is the best practice that immediately leads to good results. Other times we have to try different approaches. It might take time, but it's worth it.